Hey everybody, it's Donovan with the Music Retail Podcast. I want to thank you for being here today and for watching today's episode. I think you're going to really enjoy it. You know, my goal with the Music Retail Podcast is to interview people that are interesting, that have something to give and to share, that can help you build a better business. In order to make sure you receive future updates, please like and subscribe. That not only will keep you in the loop for things as they come up, but it also helps the YouTube algorithm to know that people actually like this content and will share it around. Okay, let's get to the interview.
Well, today's guest is going to be a lot of fun. When I first started this podcast, Cris was on my list of people that I wanted to talk to. Cris is the manager at Summerhays Music Center, which is the oldest established family music store in Utah. Founded in 1936, their commitment to music education and quality products has made them one of the finest retail stores in the Salt Lake Valley and beyond. And currently, they have 2 locations in Utah and 5 partner stores. Our guest, Cris Behrens, has worked for Summerhays Music Center since 1992. He earned a degree in band instrument repair from Red Wing Tech College and spent the first 5 years with Summerhays repairing instruments. He's now their sales manager. Cris has attended UVSC for business and accounting classes and enjoys watching and playing basketball, snorkeling, boogie boarding, and surfing in his spare time, hence the whale background for those that are watching. So, Cris, welcome to the Music Retail Podcast. Really glad that we could make this happen. This is going to be a fun day.
I'm excited. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So my first question is, what's UVSC? I read that like I know what it is, but...
that was many moons ago. It's now UVU, Utah Valley University.
Gotcha. All right. So tell me a little bit about your background specifically, and then we'll kind of get into the background of Summerhays. But I see you went to Red Wing Tech. Tell me, what instrument do you play? Were you in school band as a kid? Kind of give me the Cliff Notes version of your history.
The Cliff Notes is I got fired from my grocery gig at the age of 16. I don't know why. My dad was working at a music store in Quincy, Illinois, up the road from you. And the gentleman that owned that taught me how to do, basic repairs and stuff. And I did that for about a year and a half. We took a trip to Red Wing. I knew I didn't have the money or the grades for 4-year college. And I loved working with my hands and puzzles. And so I'm like, I'm just going to go do a repair. It's 9 months. I'll be out. Everyone else will be paying college debt for 15 years. Did the math. And that's how the Summerhays family found me and brought me out to Utah.
That's awesome. So were you a band kid before this?
I wasn't. I was the guy making fun of them outside the room. And yeah, it wasn't until I didn't play an instrument until I got to Red Wing, and they had to teach you how to play an instrument to make sure the stuff worked. But my whole life it's just been evolved around music. You saw Michael Jackson do the moonwalk. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with music, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. That's, there's so many people, of course, that have stories that are like that where a small, what seemed like an insignificant event at the time, in this case, your dad working in a music store and having you come into the shop some, just completely changed the course of your life. I mean, that's really impressive.
Yeah, I did. And what I wanted to go to school was for like marketing, graphics, promotions, that type of stuff. And, totally went a different direction because, money and all that good stuff. But, here I am a few years later and I've come full circle and I'm getting to do that job now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just still mind blowing to me. And there's not a day I don't go into work just so thankful of where things have turned around personally.
Yeah. That's amazing. So
yeah,
tell me.
I repaired for probably 4 or 5 years, came to the conclusion I had the attention span of a 3-year-old and I wasn't going to be the guy in town everyone brought their sax to. I mean, I was good enough at it for store stock, but I sold my first guitar by accident at 3:30 after school because I was the only one walking by at the moment, and I just got the bug.
Right.
I love this. And, Brian Summerhays was fortunate enough to work with me. He's like, you repair in the mornings, and when school's out, you come sell guitar and drums. And I did that for like a year, and then the manager quit and he put me into that position. And then, but you have to go to school. You have to go to school. You have to learn the basics, accounting 101, business, blah, blah, blah. And you know, they helped me out. He's like, you go on your own dime, and they took care of the classes. And then after that is just a series of different events, moving from one store to the next and slowly up the ladder.
So how did you feel that when you were managing the store, how did those accounting classes and business classes, how did that help you, do you think?
Just basically just learning the verbiage that the accounting was throwing around all the time was part of it. But the big part was, you have this item that you paid this much for, and you did this. And I'm like, yeah, I made a lot of money. And he's like, all right, now subtract this. How much, you know, how many magic beans do you have left?
Yeah.
So it really helped me realize, you know, the business behind it. It's not just about the profit you have left over. It's how do all these different things affect the sale?
Right.
Then on, you know, same thing when coming up with the marketing and promotion. Yes, it's going to bring people in, but what's it going to cost you for the average person, so on and so forth. So yeah, that's one of those, I wish I would have went to school a long time ago for that. And I'm still, I had buddies in the industry. I was just reading a book the other day, and evidently the past 10 months when people are asking me, do you have Rona? I've been saying no, but I read this financial management book, and evidently Rona means return on net assets.
Oh, wow.
So now what am I supposed to do when someone asks me if I have a Rona? Of course I have return on net assets. Education, especially in the Summerhays family, has been great, and you know, different books every week, just continuing to educate.
That's so great that they made that investment to have you do that. There's so many business owners and business managers that don't understand the financial side of the business, and if they're going to make it, they'll eventually learn it, but they usually learn it the hard way. And you're totally right. You know, you sell a band instrument or you sell a guitar, and you think, well, you know, I made 30 or 40% profit. But really, by the time you back out all the expenses, you know, most of the companies in our industry are somewhere in the 3 to 10% range of net profit. So, you know, that $300 that was made on that single transaction, you know, it's really going to be a very small amount that actually makes it down to the bottom line. It's, you know, 10 to $30 probably is actual profit by the time everything's paid for. And getting managers and even retail staff to understand, you know, how really kind of razor thin a lot of these things are, why it's so important to control expenses and maximize sales when you can. They tend to think like, gosh, there's $300 made just right there, and I only get a small piece of it. It helps if they understand the full picture.
Absolutely, it does, and it benefits them in the long run. I mean, yes, they were teaching me these things to obviously increase the growth and profitability of the company, but you know, it was also education for me in my personal life. Like, all right, you get paid this much, you have this much left over. Maybe you shouldn't go on a 2-week bender of shopping, or you know, how's it going to affect this? And it really played a big role in my life in regards to both business and personal.
Gosh, that's been something that's been on my mind recently. I've thought about offering, you know, kind of like a financial course for our staff, of just teaching them how to better manage their finances, because so many people never figure it out, or we figure it out so much later in life. And if we get started earlier, it's so much better. I remember a story of my dad telling me of a former boss that he had, who pulled him into the office, and he said, Larry, he said, how much money did you make last year? And my dad looked at him. He's like, well, I mean, you pay me, you know how much money I made. And he's like, no, I know how much I paid you, but how much did you make? How much did you actually keep? What do you have left over? And my dad's, well, none of it. Like, I've spent all of it. And from that moment, my dad started realizing it's important, you know, to start setting some aside. Now, My dad never did it, but he told me that story all the time to try to get me to do it. And living on less than you make and learning how to budget and prioritize, plan for upcoming expenses, all those kinds of things are just so critical, both in business and our personal lives. And it's a lesson that a lot of people learn really late.
Yeah, and I was fortunate that, my two work dads, my work mom educated me at a younger age, and I've been trying to pay that forward to the people that work with me as well. And a good example, invest in your employees, right? You get what you put into it. And I've had someone a couple of weeks ago, you don't know how lucky you are, Cris, to have people like Scott, Laurel, and Bryant that will send you to NAM or NASMD or the AIM things, or you don't know how lucky you are being in your position to have that. And I've never taken it for granted, but one thing I have to hand to the Summerhays is it wasn't, you can go have a good time. It was, I'm going to send you to NAM. And it cost a lot of money. But I want you to come home with the ideas that will help pay for this trip. So if you ever want to go again, you better come home with some ideas.
Yeah.
So we'd have that conversation in October. Okay, great, you can go. Here's your badge. And then in February, 2 or 3 weeks after, all right, let's meet and talk about the different things that you either learned at NAM or saw at NAM. And then they'd present me with the bill of what it costs for me to go to NAM. Great. Get me a return on my investment if you want to go to NAM next year or NASMD the year after that. And after 3 or 4 years, it's burned into your head that I'm going there. Obviously, I want to hang out and party with Donovan by night, but from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., I'm coming home with some ideas.
Well, and even after, I've learned so much just hanging out at night with industry friends, and you get a chance to talk to other vendors and store owners and managers and salespeople. Like, you just can learn so much during that time as well. I love what you're saying though about really focusing on getting a return on investment on those NAM travel and business travel. I feel the same way that you felt years ago. My first NAM show with Springfield Music, I went. It was myself and Lee Coates, who was the owner before me, and he, we just kind of walked around, met with some vendors. It was low key, not very productive. And then the next year, he was like, "Well, I don't want to go anymore, so you go." And I went by myself. And I'll tell you what, like, going to a NAM show by yourself, your second year, kind of in the industry, is not a fun experience. It's very lonely. It's hard to imagine how you could be lonely when you're surrounded by 100,000 people, but it is, especially when you don't know anyone. And so the next year I endeavored to take someone with me, and we had the exact same conversation. It's very expensive. It's expensive to take people. So I said, "Hey, I'll figure out a way to do it on the cheap." And so we shared a room. We used our credit card rewards miles to book the flights. I got vendors to pay for most of our meals. And we did it for really cheap. And then we went there with this trip's probably going to cost us a few $1,000s. We've got to come up with a return on investment for that. And that whole ethos is baked into us even to this day when we go. And now when we go, we tend to take a team full of people. So it's a very expensive trip, but that's fine. That just means I've got 5 people or 6 people or 7 people there that are tasked with making this investment worthwhile. And it's such an important part of your company culture. And you're right. Unfortunately, it's rare. I wish it needs to be more common. And hopefully people listening to this will realize investing in their people and putting the onus on their people to make the investment worth it will pay off.
Yeah, and there was the business aspect of it, just saying no, you can't go, or yes, you can go, but instilling that business ethic of it's not just a party, and it can be at times, but there's money behind it, and we need a return on our investment, and it still holds true to this day. And so first, we're sending 1 people, now we're sending 2 or 3, and like you, divide and conquer.
Yep.
We wait for the NAMU session or the NASMD session to come out. All right, you go to track 1, I'll go track 2, and then I'll go to Yamaha, and you go get ran over by a roller bag, and then I'll meet you. And So, just trying to get the most out of all those things and comparing notes when you get back. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's been.
I think that's, and I've shared this a few times, but it's worth sharing again. It's one of the things that propelled Springfield Music from a single location dealer to one of the, not only a NAMM top 100 dealer, but also a Music Trade's top 100 dealer. And it's been that focus and investment in the trade shows, NAMM in particular, but also NASMD and the other trade shows we've attended, and having us go with that intent of learning. And like you, we always set vendor appointments, but we never set vendor appointments until the NAMU schedule is released. And so then everything is filtered around the NAMU schedule, because we're there primarily to educate ourselves. And then for us on Sunday, we were usually done with the show by, sometime Sunday morning. We'll go back to the house. We always rent a house that we stay in, and we spend the rest of Sunday afternoon and evening just doing a wrap-up meeting, and everyone kind of presenting their favorite ideas of what they've seen. And we start laying out our agenda right there before we leave California or Nashville on what we're going to implement, how we're going to implement it, who handles it. And we've done that for nearly 20 years. And I think that kind of steady, incremental focus and growth of our business has propelled us to where we are today. It's singly the best investment I think that we've ever made for our business. And I can't wait until we can do it again. We had the Believe in Music Week last week, which was nice and helpful and very useful, but it's just not the same as the actual show. So I'm eager till when we can get back to it.
You and me both.
Yeah, all the social sides of it and the educational side and just seeing everybody. It's going to be great it's going to be a big party for sure when we can get back to doing it in person again. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's talk a little bit about Summerhays. Tell me, I mentioned in the intro that it was founded in 1936, and today you're primarily a school music dealer, but kind of tell me who founded it and how it got started and how the business has evolved from 1936 to 2021.
It was March of 1936. It was a cold winter. Hiram Summerhays started it in 1936. He was a band director, and he decided to start his own store up. It was mainly pianos and accordions. Accordions were all the rage. It was like the ukulele of today, seems like.
Mm-hmm.
It was during the Depression and all that. So he would run around the Midwest, drive 8 hours to Denver, buy used pianos, bring 2 back, fix them up, sell them. And that's kind of how he got his start. And, typical fashion, you've seen a lot of, they're selling TVs and grandfather clocks back in those days. And then eventually made the switch to band and orchestra. And then he passed away in the early 70s, mid 70s, and then the kids took over. Bryant Summerhays came into the picture, was president, and then into the 80s, Scott Summerhays came, Laurel Summerhays, all the kids took over as the second generation, and it kind of morphed. Pianos in the 80s and 90s, but our main focus was on band and orchestra. That's what we were really good at. And, there's other niches in the Valley, and it just, in the 90s, late 90s into 2000s, we went away from guitar and drums. The internet plus, Salt Lake is very saturated with music because the communities, everybody here wants them playing a musical instrument in a sport or theater. And that's why the band and orchestra succeeds for us, because the people per capita playing instruments is just insane,
Mm-hmm.
which is great, obviously. But so yeah, we moved out of the MI business early 2000s, focused, and Scott redirected our business model towards being a solely B&O store, and then we went away from the pianos as well, and just concentrated all that into the band and orchestra market to where we're at today.
There's a few other businesses in our industry that have done something similar. Page's Music comes to mind as maybe one of the more well-known examples. Amro Music has largely done that as well. They're still involved with pianos. And Yeah, there's amazing focus there when you remove some of the distractions in your business and just really start to focus in on getting very good at one particular thing. And school music is so diverse, and the needs there are totally different, really, than just traditional retail. That being able to focus on that almost exclusively can really lead to some tremendous success and growth. So, how do you feel like? How did the culture and how did things change at Summerhays during that time of moving away from combo and MI and really focusing in?
It was quite of a shock because at that time I was managing the combo end of the things with two different stores, and I grew up in the '80s as a butt rock kid. That was I was hoping Vince Neil would die and someone would call me to be the lead singer. So to go from being in love with combo for 10 years and then we have a job for you. It's just band and orchestra. Would you like it? I'm like, yes. It's better than no job, and I don't want to repair. But it was a transition for a while too, because you got to wake up every morning and love your job, especially in the industry. And but I learned to love it really quick. It was the same principles, concepts that the Summerhays family instilled. A majority of the same things to get people in the door for guitar and drums. PA is also, you can use that for the band and orchestra as well. The culture slowly changed in the fact of now we're bringing in people that play a violin or more specialty type of sales associates, but the culture still remained the same. Right.
So let's talk a little bit about Scott Summerhays and his involvement, and I think anyone familiar with Summerhays music will have heard that Scott passed away recently, and suddenly, and really sad to lose him. And he's so well known in our industry, not just with his association with Summerhays, but he was also a former president of the National Association of School Music Dealers in ASMD. He was a NAM board member, so he was really involved in our industry. And he'd been involved with Summerhays for a long time. I mean, like I mentioned, he grew up in there and started working in the store when he was 12 years old as a kid, basically kind of growing up, working through it. How has the business changed since his passing?
Other than just missing the boss, the man, the best friend every day, it's still plugging along. Him and Laurel and the Summerhays family have a vision for Summerhays music and a business plan, and that part has not changed. Mm-hmm. In fact, if anything, it has kind of woke some of us up to going, oh we forgot about no cardboard on the sales floor. We haven't done this for so if anything, it's made us kind of revisit the values that Scott instilled in all of us as far as the business plan and model go.
Yeah, I think so many times when that force has left, it kind of creates a vacuum, and it gives everyone else an opportunity to sort of rise up and rise to the occasion. And furthermore, it's such a testament to the quality of business and the quality of people that someone has surrounded themselves with and instilled in their business, where even with their passing or if they're with their departure from the business, that it continues to thrive and succeed. And I think ultimately that's the type of business we all want to build. We want to build a business that can be successful even in our absence, that can carry on after we've departed. And it's a true testimony to all the ethic and effort that he put into place, and the people he surrounded himself and the Summerhays family, that it's been able to carry on and continue.
Yeah, and that's been a huge part, and that's pretty much the past 9 weeks, 3 days, and a couple hours, Donovan, is just continuing, basically, passing the torch. Mm-hmm. And when I say passing the torch, I mean, hey, read this book. Are you doing okay? Chris, in my head, I keep hearing, Chris, don't mess this up. That was like his key phrase. He didn't have to motivate me, good or bad. That's a good idea. Don't mess it up. And I just keep telling that to myself every time. I'm like, well, you know, WWSD, what would Scott do? I'm like, he would do it, but he'd don't mess it up. But whether it's, you know, continuing to educate the other employees, you know, he was phenomenal at doing that, teaching them the who, what, whys behind it, the psychology behind it. So, I mean, that's one of the big things to take away from him and to continue to do, because those are all business practices that, you know, he spent, like you said, he started there when he was 10 or 12. You know,
Mm-hmm.
why not continue to take those things that have been working and excelling and continue to do it?
This week, my oldest son, Caleb, who's 19, has started working in the store. And for most of his life, he's worked at various times here in the offices and the repair shop, not doing repair, but, you know, cleaning or doing threading the case tags with the little thing so that it would go on the cases, and, you know, outfitting care kits and whatever. And he's kind of, you know, during the summers, he'd come up here and work with Dad rather than just sit at home all day playing games and stuff. And now he's actually working in the retail store on the floor. And it's really neat to see, you know, his interest in doing it. And I've always told him from the beginning that, you know, if he would like to come work here, he's certainly welcome to. But he doesn't have to. I want him to do what he wants to do. And if that's to be here, then great. But if not, then that's totally fine. And then he has to recognize, if he does come to work here, that there's a pressure that's on him that wouldn't be on other employees necessarily. And so I'm really excited to see him rise to the occasion. You know, it's going to be interesting to see over the years if this is something that he, you know, sticks with and loves, or if this is just a stop in his journey. And whatever makes him happy will make me happy. And if he wants to be here and to carry on what we've built, then that would be great. If he wants to do something else, then that would be great too. But it is kind of neat having kids involved, and that whole ethic is kind of interesting. Plus, it's also kind of fun to have when he comes home to hear about what life is like in the store, because my office isn't in the store anymore. And so I often don't know what the day-to-day is. So having him come home and ask questions about things he saw or whatever is it's been fun and enlightening for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's very cognizant of being the boss's kid. He doesn't want to come across that way, you know, and which I appreciate. So
I've got a 22-year-old boy working the front counter as well. Now you know what I've been yelling at every time I come home. Now you understand why I say make sure the front is covered.
Yeah,
Don't
exactly.
let that phone ring more than 3 times. I mean,
that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Now you get it. And then you sit and laugh and joke about it.
Yeah. So what's your role today? What's your title today? And can you kind of walk me through what a typical day looks like?
I've been the general manager for 10, 15 years, and the word general is general. It's many hats. You know, one day we're working with the repair shops. You know, definitely they've kind of made me the face of Summerhays in regards to the teachers. So, you know, if the road reps aren't doing their job, they're blowing up my phone. But day to day, it depends on the task at hand in regards to what's happening. The 3 of us made a really good team, and you know, Scott was big picture, all things financial. You know, his sister's incredibly intelligent. You know, credit and collections we sell tons of harps. She ran the harp department. You know, anything legal, whether it had to do with the building, contract, stuff like that. And then, you know, marketing, promotion, ordering, hiring, firing. You know, the list could go on, but that would fall in my lap.
Gotcha. Okay. You know, I have heard you speak many times at NAM, and you always are presenting on various marketing topics. So I definitely want to get into that here in a minute. We mentioned with Summerhays primarily being focused on school music and apparently doing a robust harp business as well, which is news. I didn't know that until I looked at the website. I'm like, wow, these guys are knee deep into harps. Like, I don't know if that's a thing I'm missing out on. I should look into that. That you've gotten out of combo. How, tell me what your local competition is like in your area and the areas that you operate in. So, and maybe specifically school music. Do you have much local competition in terms of school music? And if so, how are you different?
Yeah, we have probably at least 2 to 3 stores in the area that are, do B&O rentals and sales. How we differentiate is, you have one of those stores where they're in it for the pianos, and B&O is the side hustle, or the other ones they're more in it for the MI combo type of side, and the B&O is a side hustle kind of a thing. Whereas we're just concentrating, B&O is our life 24/7, and ed reps on the road year long dealing with the teachers, where theirs is just happening during a 2-month period type of situation. So, which is fine by us. You be distracted with pianos and MI, and we're going to concentrate on the guitar, or on the band and orchestra side of things.
So do your local competitors not have like school service reps, and they're not really in the school music business? They're just in the rental business?
No, they still have them. Just it's not refined as, say, your store, Menchie's, Page's, Summerhays.
Yeah. Like I mentioned, I think that's such a challenge. I mean, in our case, we do a lot of combo, and we do lessons and repairs, and then we have a full school music department. And I'll be honest, there's definitely times I look at Summerhays, I look at Page's music, think, gosh, if we could focus on one of these things, I bet we could do it really, really, really well. But instead, we're trying to do several things really well, and it's hard. When you try to focus on more than one or maybe 2 things, you can fall into this trap that kind of leads you into this frustrating mediocrity, and you have to really work hard to push your way through it. So being able to focus primarily on school music can really allow you to rise above your competition. I don't think I'm as bold as you all, or Pages, or the other folks, to lop off our combo business to do it. Instead, I just keep hiring people and trying to get them to all kind of operate in their own sort of realm, so that we can try to compete and do as well as you guys do in those areas.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking combo, I'm not knocking piano or harpsichords or accordions. Just everyone gets their little niches and runs with it, and it works. I mean, T-Spice, prime example. Not up and coming. T-Spice is awesome, right? And he had one vision 5 years ago, and look at him now. So I just, he's finding his niche, and he's killing it. And whatever he pursues, or even if he doesn't pursue it, he'll continue to do it. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to just thrive to be the best at what you're doing.
I have to proclaim my ignorance here. I'm not sure who you're talking about.
Sorry, Tim Spicer Music.
Oh, gotcha.
we gave him the nickname of T-Spice.
I was sitting here thinking, like, do I just fake my way through this like I know what you're talking about? Or yes. Yeah. Okay. Now I know exactly who you're talking about. One of my very first podcast guests. So yes, didn't know he had a nickname. I love that nickname. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Spice Girls, T-Spice. Like he's the handsome redhead,
Yeah.
He doesn't look like anyone in a group of 4 if you're ever together. So yeah, T-Spice.
Well, he just did such a great job of like kind of just immediately jumping in to the industry, and meeting people and soaking up everything he could to grow his business. And it's really inspiring to see someone come in and have the success that he's had so quickly. And
I'm a little jealous of him. I won't lie. Over the past couple of years, he's kind of lit a fire under my butt to go, well, I used to be the golden child, and now this guy's doing it. So I need to hurry up and figure out the Guinness Book of World Records for blah, blah, blah. Or I need to, but in a good way. But where I want to go with, joking aside, Tim, I remember meeting Tim, and he reminded me of myself, of just put yourself in those situations, shut up, and just soak it all in. I had a seat at the table with all the big boys, and your Joel Minchies, your Goffs, Amro, Whitney Grasafia, Ted Brown. You're sitting at these tables, listening to them. Hey, you're like, I'm the odd one out, but just sit there. And I still have it to this day. Behrens, you're being kind of quiet. That's because you're talking.
Right.
And that's what Tim, I remember those first years, meeting up with them, and he was kind of like that dog on the Looney Tunes commercial that would just like run in circles. Hey boss, hey boss, hey boss, hey boss. And I do the same thing, but look what it does. It's like you got a human library to drain out of. And if you don't ask questions, you're not going to get any answers.
Yeah. Putting your ego aside and, asking questions and listening is just such a key. And he's done that from the get-go. And I think it's why they've had just such quick success right out of the gate.
Yeah. And you learn a lot faster that way. At least for me, I did. I just question after question. You bring up Scott, he's like, how many times are you going to come into my office today? Yeah, but I just want to know how this spreadsheet works, or I just have so many questions. And so it obviously takes patient individuals when working with employees, but yeah, just knowledge is key.
Well, and that willingness to do that is just to go out and ask. And I think it's one of the things that's so great about our industry is so many people are willing to share. They're willing to share the things they've done to have the success that they've had, and they're willing to share their failures, the mistakes, and we're so much more collaborative than I think you'd find in many other industries. And it's definitely one of the things that makes this always fun and exciting and fresh to be a part of, is just how we will work together to try to help each other. Yeah,
totally agree. Donovan, this is getting kind of deep and serious, so I'm going to do what I do best. You got Tim Spicer, Robert Chrissy, and Chris Behrens. You got to hire one, fire one, and one's your successor. Go.
Hire one, fire one, and one's, oh my gosh.
And for those watching and listening at home, right now, Donovan's sweating to figure out which of the three will be mad at him for firing.
Oh my gosh. Oh man, you literally picked like the three hardest people. Oh my gosh.
I just picked them because they had done this podcast before, and I know they'll watch it and torture you.
Yes. Well, so so Robert, let me sound this out. So Robert is, incredibly sharp and sees opportunities where other people doesn't see them, and is able to make things happen almost out of thin air, which is remarkable when you consider the fact that he's a drummer. It's remarkable, period, but even more amazing for a drummer to have that kind of awareness. But he's also, maybe he's too smart. But then with Tim has such a great, we mentioned like his, he's got this eagerness and this willingness to learn, but the other thing that he is very inspiring, and can really motivate the people around. He's so great with his team. If he was my successor, everybody would love him more than me. And that might be a problem. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think because of the love I have for my people, I think I might have Tim be my successor, even though it would make me not look good. Maybe people will just think highly of me because I put him in place. Right, man. I'm afraid, Chris, I'm afraid you're going to get fired. I don't know, but you've got the rest of this podcast to redeem yourself. We'll have this be your interview.
We'll circle back to this on next year on the next slide.
There we go. Well, you turned the tables on me. That's hysterical. Okay, I should have known that was coming. I should have known there'd be the Behrens curveball headed my way. So let's talk a little about some marketing stuff. One of the things that I saw doing a little bit of background on Summerhays, was that Summerhays has 426 Google reviews with an average rating of 4.6. And getting Google reviews is not an easy thing to do. It's something that we're actively working on in our company right now with some success. But tell me, like, 426 is a lot, especially for a school music dealer. How did you get customers to leave so many good reviews? And I'm going to first say you don't get to say great service and so on and so forth, because that's a given. No one's going to leave great reviews if they're not having a great experience. So we're going to assume that, and then tell me how you actually got them to do it.
This is a little embarrassing. I met with the Podium last week, right? They're like, we want to help increase your Google reviews. I'm like, great, I could use some more. And he's looking at it, and he said the exact same thing. He's like, how did you get so many? And I had to think about it for a while, but going back was everybody, when you're dealing with a sale or working with a customer, just the biggest thing is asking for it. It amazes me how many people just don't ask for it. Now, are you going to ask the person that's livid because you wouldn't cover their violin because their dog chewed up the scroll on it as a chew toy? Probably not. But, that one customer is like, I was in town for a funeral. Thank you so much for this last minute short-term rental. I really do appreciate it. Happy to help. We'll see you on Monday. If you don't mind, if you just leave a positive review, that would be great. But a lot of it is just natural attrition happening. We haven't sent out emails. I don't have stuff up hanging in the store. Just literally asking them for the reviews during the good ones. We've been lucky. I wish I had, I could tell you 2 NASMD sessions, a NAM session, a Music Inc. magazine article, downbeat, but I know all the things we should be doing and to do. It's just we've been very fortunate that the staff is trained and has that customer service aspect to it. But when they're hired, I take them to lunch, and then we hit the mall and start looking at displays. Look how the place is laid out. Tell me if you see any dust. What do you see wrong with those lights up there?
Mm-hmm.
Did you keep track of how long it took for a sales associate to come over? 1 minute, 22 seconds. So when they first start, I try to take 2 hours out of my day, and that's part of their training. Is we just go on an exercise. We'll hit the mall for marketing displays, why things are so nice and neat, and then we'll go to the mountain bike rental shop or ski rental shop, and pay attention while they fit the boot to you. Are they condescending to you? Are they nice? Are they smiling? So I take them on some adventures, because when they walk through the door, you want to treat them like you wanted to be treated when you go to the bike rental place.
Yeah. Just
because you don't know what a 24-inch rim is with 13 spokes and a hybrid tire, that goes over people's heads. And
yeah.
So I'd like to think that the training, and when they walk through the door, that they're getting the customer service that they deserve, and those people that like to make comments will make comments.
I got to tell you, you're making this firing decision very difficult to do now. I love that idea. That is such a smart thing to do. I believe it's the first time I've heard someone talk about doing that. And we opened the podcast talking about NAM and how wonderful it is to go to the NAM show and how expensive that is. But it's not expensive at all to spend a couple of hours with an employee and going out and doing a local field trip. Of some of your local the mall and other retailers, especially specialty retailers. That's not expensive. That's almost free. You have that payroll cost either way, so it's really there's hardly any additional cost for that. And you're right, the lessons you learn to have that employee to start thinking about those things critically, and thinking about the good experiences and the bad experiences. Boy, I love the way they do this. This made me feel uncomfortable. I would want to do it a different way. That's brilliant, man. That's really, really brilliant. That's so smart. Who came up with that? Was that a Scott thing or? Is it a Cris? Was it a Cris idea? Did you start that?
I will take credit for it because
good on you. That's awesome.
Half of the marketing ideas have came from past experiences, and you get to, okay, band and orchestra, 70%, 72%. We kept track for like 6 months one time to be able to do the math, clicking male, female, mom, dad, blah, blah, blah. And, 72% of were female shoppers for B&O. Now, obviously that rate goes down for guitar, drums, changes for pianos, so on and so forth. But I look at it as going, all right, 70%. So how do we make obviously, Gail Beacock hits it on the head.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also going, all right, what things outside of our industry are female dominant? All right, I'm going to Lululemon. Even though CJ buys his pants there. Anyway.
Talking about you, CJ Everwater.
I laughed, but then I went in to the men's pants. I don't know if I'll ever buy any other dress pants ever again. Anyway, but Lululemon, right? You look at the lighting. You look at, all right, what's the current colors? I'm going to use that on my rental flyer. Because guess who's looking at the flyer the kid brings home?
Yeah.
So, going out on those adventures, not just for a training aspect, but also opening my eyes to what's the latest and greatest in other trends. Because you have all these multi-million-dollar companies that are paying people millions of dollars to design, talk about the strategic coloring of different pinks, blues, greens, orange, reds. What do they mean? And they're already doing the work for you. So I cheat and try to see what other stores, not band and orchestra, but like the bike rental place or the ski rental place or the canoe rental place or a Lululemon or those kind of things. Just try to incorporate, how can I take that and make it work for me? And sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Like, you ever talk to a grocery store manager? Those end caps are paid for by Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
So company blah, blah, blah. What would you think about paying for some retail space up front? And they just laugh at me and hang up the phone. But so it doesn't always work, but it's those kind of ideas from outside the industry, how you can take those and make it work here.
That's genius. I mean, that's why I do this podcast right there. I wrote those things down. That is such a good idea. And that's something that myself and anyone listening can do right away. And you're right, you would learn so much by doing that. That's tremendous. So we mentioned like you really love doing all the marketing and promotion stuff, and you just do such a great job with it. We kind of heard some of how you're thinking going about that. Share with me one of your favorite marketing promotions that you've done for Summerhays. Favorite in terms of fun, and then also maybe successful as well.
The one I'm most proud of, kind of put me on the map because it was just a year or two after they let me manage the guitar and drum shop. And one of the owners we were joking around one day because the year before we sold like 62 drum sets in a year, which was impressive for that particular location.
Sure.
And he just jokingly said, well, tell you what, next year if you sell 100, I'll send you to Maui. Okay. I've never been to Maui. I grew up in cornfields. It's like a foreign country to me. I want to do this. And so I thought back to, all right, what contest have I ever seen that was really great? And I remember one year in high school, there was a competition at the dealership for graduates, come put two hands on a car. The last one with their hand on the car wins it. And I lasted like 6 hours.
Wow.
Well, again, that attention span of a 3-year-old and the bladder of anyway. And I thought, this is such a cool concept. How could I do this for drums? And that's pretty much what we started a hands-on competition for drums and we sent flyers out to every school, and they had to sign up and register beforehand. And it had all the rules and regulations. It had to be 10 fingertips at all time. If one fingertip comes off, you're out, because you can't do flat, especially if they're holding on to a cymbal stand or on top of a cymbal. And
Right.
it was a hands-on competition. They come in Friday night at 6, put 2 hands on a drum set, and we'd put about 12 people to a drum set, 12 to 15. And we had, that first year, we had about 120 people.
Wow.
They'd get a break every 6 hours, 5-minute break. If they were late, they were out. They had to take a break. Obviously, you had to get lawyers involved, because what if someone passes out, doesn't take a break, enough water, so on and so forth. Anyway,
Right.
break every 6 hours. Started at Friday at 6 and ended Sunday morning around 7 a.m.
Wow. How did it end?
What do you mean in regards to how did it? So you pay the employees. There's you had 5 to 10 judges at the beginning. So basically one person on a drum set watching fingers up for all hours, and we'd hire other people to help do it, so you could do it in 6-hour shifts.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically, they'd have a clipboard with everybody's names and numbers on it, because you'd give them numbers to put on their bag. 68 needs to take a break, or 68, sorry, you're out, kind of a thing. And what was fun, you start with 120, and then by the time the store opened at 10 a.m., the first year there was 70. So we got 50 out in about a 12, 15-hour period.
Right.
Then they would keep, slowly going out. So the first year lasted a lot longer than other years, because it was an experimental year and you just didn't know what to do, how to do it. So if their finger came off, they were out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after the second year, to fine tune it, everybody got a gift certificate based off how long they lasted. Because you would get, 6, 7-year-olds that would want to come and do it with dad.
Right.
And those 2 would be there, and the kid would last 3 hours and pass out from drinking 800 Red Bulls or whatever. And they would feel like they're a loser.
Right.
But we found that, you know what? Here's a gift certificate. You lasted 4 hours. 4 times $5 is $20. Here's a $20 gift certificate to put towards a drum set someday. And then if they lasted 24 hours, they got a gift certificate for, let's just say, $100.
Mm-hmm.
They lasted 48 hours, it's $200 towards a drum set. And so the second year we kept track. You had 100 gift certificates that were handed out, and 68% of them redeemed them towards the rental or purchase of a drum set.
Holy cow.
Now, yes, some of them were $200, some were 20, but if you look at it, selling 68 drum sets from one event and cost average it out, it's not as crazy as you think.
Right.
Then it hit me. This is the greatest part of the promotion. People can call me later or email me, or I'll talk about this promotion all day. But what I come to find out after doing it year 2 and 3 was you had 100 people in a room, undivided attention, I might add. You have 100 contestants. The third year I kept track of people that would bring them food, people that would come in and put ice on their neck, people that would just come in to talk to them, right? The average person brought 5.5 people with them.
Oh, wow.
So in a 48-hour period, we saw 1,500 to 1,600 people.
Holy cow.
And some of them were repeat ones, but, Aunt Carla showed up. After the family of 12 had already been there and saw him, they told Uncle Joe, they told their neighbor, So all these kids that kept lasting, people would come in to check on them. So guess what they do while they're bored, waiting for their kid for a break or waiting for whatever? They walk around the store.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, I didn't even think of this aspect of it.
Yeah.
Then you run into kind of like the band classroom. You know, Cris was here and Donovan was here. I never met you in my life, but I'm sitting next to you for the next 18 hours. And I know you enjoy your cigars. I know that me and you connect on Motley Crue albums. I know. And now we're friends.
Yeah.
And I just know some of them would come back the next year in the same groups that they were the year before. And it was all going back to Summerhays music. So, you know, we were getting sales throughout the day. I sold 62 drum sets off of it that applied towards my other 58 that I sold just naturally throughout the year. And I'm on a plane to Maui.
Yeah.
In a market that should have never sold 100 drum sets. But yeah, that is probably my favorite promotion. And
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. We could do a whole episode just on that. I have so many questions about it. You know, one thing I have to know, because I'm dying to figure out, like, did you have it's going to end at this point, no matter what? Like, was there some way that you made sure that this wasn't a week-long thing, or were you just going to ride it out till it's over?
Just ride it out till it was over. And they all,
oh my gosh,
they would all always, for the most part, and Sunday, 2 to 7 a.m. all the time. But
would they just fall asleep or lose interest by that point, or the sleep deprivation kicks in and
their hands would swell up, and they would be looking at them, and they couldn't move them. But rigor mortis sets in, and you start getting twitches, right? Oh, your fingers.
Right.
Sorry. But the one other part I want to back up, especially with the younger kids, was, well, this happened. So we shut down guitar and drums, didn't do it for like 3 or 4 years. I'm like, so how can I do this with band instruments? Even more profitable. So we cleaned out our entire accessory department, put out 300 saxophone trumpet cases, anything square, and each kid would put their hands flat on a trumpet case, sit on the floor. So we did it for band, and what I was starting to realize was, that the 9th and 10th graders were all about it. It was like a free party for a weekend, but they really wanted that nice step-up instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd last 24 hours. They'd have their $200 to put towards whatever they were called. This particular instance, they were saxophone. They wanted a saxophone, a nice saxophone.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, great, here's your $200. And Dad's like, you know what? Can I just go ahead and buy it for her now? That way, when she wakes up tomorrow, I can surprise her. And we'd always have like 4 or 5 of those happening too. At least once a year, we'd get one parent that's like, I am tired of driving back and forth. Can you just sell me this open hole flute so we can go home?
I guess.
Then you would start it was a snowball effect, because you're a judge watching 15 kids with 30 parents or 30 cousins, whatever. Now you start talking to the parents and developing a relationship with them.
Mm-hmm.
And lasting forever, because you're sitting or selling at the store, you're trying to sell them something in 15 minutes or less, or an hour seems like forever, because you want to get on to the next task or the next thing. But with that particular promotion, it was always important that I made sure over half of the judges were actual employees that could talk shop.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a hard way, like,
right.
Oh, you should just buy it for them and go home, or you should. But it was
right. But they could answer questions, and they know what they're talking about. Yeah.
Plus you have, you got 100 kids doing it, and say 200 parents. That's 300 people. You're still dealing with cell phones. Well, guess how many of them called the television stations?
Oh yeah.
I didn't have to call one television station. Sometimes 2 different channels would show up a year, but at least one. And that advertising alone, because all right, we're checking in. It's 5 o'clock on Saturday. Let's go down to Summerhays where it smells like feet. And so they would check in at 5 and 10. And, they'd be 1 to 3 minute segments. And they'd follow up with the winners. Well, my cost on a drum, if I was to pay for that kind of advertising with the television station, that's 4 or 5 drum sets that you could buy.
Yeah.
So, and then at the end, just cost average out everything. Because yes, you have to pay employees more, obviously. You have to feed them all. I was buying them. The breakfast shift got free breakfast. The lunch shift got lunch. I mean, there was, some added costs. You have to have the doors open, extra porta potties.
Yeah.
Security guard at the front, checking stuff in and out for 48 hours. But yeah, it worked out. And
did you get to go to Maui?
I did go to Maui.
That's awesome. That's so cool. I love that.
I went to Maui. That first one ended up on the front page of the business section, looking like Lloyd Christmas with my old glasses. And anyway, that got on that. And then, Scott was in the groups with everybody and he shared it with his friends. And then word got back to Zach Phillips at Music Inc. They ran an article on it. Next thing you know, NAMU, NSMD, that's the one that kind of.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. That's fantastic. So what are you planning for 2021 for marketing events? Obviously things are a little more challenging right now. So what's your marketing plan for this year?
Our marketing, we've had a marketing plan for something going on each month. Like coming up we call it Fiddle Fair. It's the entire month of March where we sell step up violins, violas, cellos, so on and so forth. And we make a production out of it. All the road reps go out to all the schools, let the kids test drive the instruments in a school setting. Obviously that got cut short a little bit last March and was not an option in the fourth quarter this year for band instruments. But things are opening up enough to where we're still going to pursue that because it hasn't failed. That's one thing. The other one, I had just had this thought the other day. A friend of mine in the music industry does this podcast with music retailers, right?
Genius.
And it's like, genius. I'm like, why am I not doing this for my band and orchestra directors? Because if I'm interviewing them all, they feel honored and special.
Yeah.
Unlike me on your interview, but they would feel honored and special that Summerhays Music wanted to interview them and ask them questions. How are you mentally handling the stress that you have the past 10 months? What are you doing when you're not in the classroom, Zoom, or working 30 hours a day? And, asking those questions, how are you preparing for recruiting? How are you doing that? And then I would think word's going to spread. Now I have the teacher in this other county who respects this teacher that's going to watch that podcast to learn something. Well, guess who it's by?
Yeah.
Summerhays Music, your band and orchestra specialty store. So yeah, that's one thing I'm going to look into. Because the competition's not going to do it.
Right.
Or hasn't thought of it yet. And if I'm first to the punch, and the same was to be true back in March or April. Yeah, I came up with the sticky floor thing to practice social distancing. I'm like, what instrument's 6 feet tall? String bass. Please stand 1 string bass apart, and put a picture of it in, right? Okay, that's all great and dandy. But then I thought, you know what they need right now? They need a Facebook group where they can all share ideas. Well, they're all coming to the Utah Band and Orchestra Facebook page to cry about administration, tough parents, COVID, online, but it's all kind of being done through a Summerhays Music portal.
Yeah. You're the one that's connecting it. You're the one that's connecting these people together.
Right. And I would think this kind of thing, the podcast would work as well.
Well, and AMRO has done such a great job of that over the last year. They have so many wonderful episodes. I go to a lot of them and participate, or I don't participate in them, I just view them. But so many great topics, and it's such a great thing to do. And you're right, it's a way to share the stories and share the struggles and the successes and triumphs as well, with our local music educators, with each other. And there's so many people that have things to share, that may not necessarily would take the effort to do it on a Facebook group, but would certainly sit down and have a conversation. And especially if someone else is kind of interviewing and leading them through it, to help them think about some of the questions and some of the areas that they've struggled with and had success with. That's a great idea. That's another one I wrote down. I tell you what, I think you're working your way into this job for sure, Cris, without a doubt.
I mean, give credit where credit's due. I mean, obviously with you doing this is great, but yeah, Nick hit it out. Nick Averwater hit it out of the park on that one. And
yeah, it's exceptionally well done. It really is, and it was great timing, and it's been really useful for a lot of people to listen to. I've shared it with our educators. AMRO is a competitor of ours in a certain market that we're in, one of our markets. We're on the fringe of each other's territories. But regardless of that, I just have a lot of respect for those guys and really admire what they've built. And they've been so useful to me over the years. I'd have questions. They've allowed me to, several times I've gone through their store and they've, shown me how they do things and operate things. So it's really neat that they have that kind of attitude as well to share. But anyone who's in the school of music business and hasn't listened to their podcast should certainly do it. And it's also on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube. It's really great. So with that, let's kind of shift gears just slightly. Tell me what you think is right with our industry. We've talked a lot about the collaboration and stuff like that. What are some of the other things about our industry that you really love and that you think people from other industries perhaps might admire?
I don't want to be a broken record like your other podcast, but it's really came home this past 10 months with COVID. One thing I realized, what COVID did was put all of us on a level playing, I don't want to say level playing field, in the same position, meaning I've never had to deal with this before. I mean, you can ask the gurus, the Quinlan and Favishes, Joe Lamont. It's like, for that hot minute, all of us were in the exact same boat.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was reaching out to everyone. How are you doing? What are you doing? And the care and the love that everyone brought, insert the rising tide quote here, but that part really amazed me. And how strong it still is 10 months later. Are you doing okay? Is there anything I can do to help? And that past 10 months has showed me that. And then, the passing of Mr. Summerhays as well. The outpouring was just, he wasn't a social butterfly like myself, but I kid you not, Donovan, the phone rang for every 5 minutes for 2 weeks straight from someone different. And I guess where I'm going, and it was competitors, it was manufacturers that we hadn't dealt with in 20 years. And it was just the love and outpouring of this industry that I talked to my other friends in the IT industry, the ski resorts. They're like, we would assume set their mountain on fire so no one could ski there next year, as opposed to talk to them or see how are they doing through COVID or after a passing. And that part I love about the music industry. It blows me away every single time something happens, and it makes me want to be a better friend and pay it back to everyone in the industry as well. What I hope doesn't happen is, we're all on this bandwagon. I mean, 9/11 is a good example. Everybody was a true-blooded American for months and months, right? Everyone had a flag in their yard. And then, month 4, there was only, 1 million flags. Month 12, there was only 4 flags. And recession, kind of the same thing. We're all, hey, are you doing okay? You doing okay? And then, things got a little bit better and those phones quit ringing. I just really hope that everyone remembers these past 10 months and how much you've loved each other and hope each other is doing okay and sharing to raise the tide, right? And just continue to do that to make music continue to survive and even surpass what any of us have seen so far. And I really hope we can all come together and just continue that.
Yeah.
Not forget.
Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but most won't. History is any indicator, but many will. And those are the people that are going to reap the most rewards. And not just the financial rewards, but also just the personal satisfaction and the relationships. The people that remember these times and carry them with them are going to be the people who are going to ultimately get the most out of their experience on this earth. So and you're right, like this time has been a time that has, especially in our industry, has brought many of us together. It's a shame it hasn't brought us more together as a nation. That's been disappointing. We won't really get into that, but certainly the industry has pulled together. And I think there will be those of us that will try to carry this forward and remember it. But my expectation is that in a few years, when things are back to normal, that it'll be back to normal in terms of behaviors and attitudes and stuff. But that is the beautiful thing about it. We were talking about this before. Like, our industry's always been collaborative and supportive, and that's going to continue. It's the basis of musicians. We're used to working with others, and I think to some degree that will certainly continue.
I would agree, and I look at them like ant farms. You had 9/11, recession, invention of the internet, and now COVID. It's like, all right, we had our little ant farms like kids, right? And then recession comes along and you shake it up. You watch those ants rebuild for 9 years, and then you shake it up again, and
yep.
And then you watch the ants. I'm kind of excited to see. I mean, we're a prime example. Brick and mortar, we will always be brick and mortar, because you lose that customer service feeling when you sell online. And guess what I wish I had the past 10 months.
Yeah.
So, we've been working on a website the past 5 months.
Yeah.
Be able to sell online just to have it as a backup. But where I'm going with what I'm excited about now that the ant farm's been shaken up, you were talking about, I think with Robert Christie, like, are we going to do more DoorDash or deliveries or Grubhub to deliver a rental instrument? Everyone's starting to think now. Like, my mom now knows how to click, send.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how many other people know how to click, send now? So I'm excited about the next 2 to 5 years, because it's not going to be business as usual. It's going to be business as future. Or come up with
future is now. Yeah, exactly. So what's wrong with our industry?
Geez, that's like pick your favorite child or figure out who to fire. Since you posed that question to me, I think, at least in the B&O world, I think the time has come that if more kids are going to join band or orchestra, or even a guitar class for that matter, that it needs to be more modern times. Meaning, I don't understand why you can't take a easy Beatles song and have a kid learn to play flute on it for the first time. I'm not denouncing the classical, the jazz, any of that, but I think as far as the school band business, I think there needs to be some major switch. We just need someone to stand up. I wrote this new book. Someone else backs it, whether it's a Dr. Tim or anybody that everyone bows down to and goes, yes, that is the way we are going to go now. Yes. I really think we're gonna have to make it fun. These kids are, they're looking at videos in 5 seconds. They're not even reading posts anymore, and I think it's just going to continue to decline because it's not the cool hip thing to do.
Yeah.
And the teachers are definitely cool and hip, and they're making it work. But I think that's what's wrong at the moment, and probably has been for a while.
It has been for a while. I've thought that for 20 years, and you're totally right. Like, and plus it's with something that's just intrinsically difficult to do and takes much time to do. Learning to play a band instrument skillfully or a string instrument skillfully is not something one can pick up quickly. And most things that our kids are into today are things that they can pick up rather quickly and have success. And they even set it up so that they can have success right off the bat. Whether it's sports or video games or anything else. And we really should do that with band music. Anytime I'm in a band room and I get a chance to listen to kids play something, it's readily apparent when they're playing music that they love. They'll run through the Ode to Joy. They'll run through the band book version of some Hot Cross Buns or whatever. And they kind of will play that. But then when they get a chance to play something that sounds more like the music that they listen to or that even their parents listen to, there's such an enthusiasm and excitement. And they'll ask, my wife's a middle school band director, and her band will, hey, can we play number 17? Because it sounds like a rock song or something. Like, there's so much enthusiasm for that. And in your average band method book, there's 2 songs like that maybe that may have something along those lines. And I think if some publisher, could even be a small publisher that could end up making a pile of money on this, could turn those numbers around and incorporate more modern music elements, pop music, rock music, even rap music, and have that be a fair chunk of the material in the book, and then mix in some of the more classic and historic stuff. I think we could really make band cool again and get kids a lot more interested in it.
Yeah, and I mean, case in point, I paying attention to the Utah Symphony attendance numbers. Obviously not this year, but their highest attending performances were Disney movies, rock band movies back in, the music of Harry Potter, or, those are packed. So to tell me that band and orchestra is dying or it's dead, it's not really the case. Because they're still showing up to see a full orchestra playing amazing music. It's just they're relating it with the Titanic soundtrack, or they're relating it with Avatar, or Star Wars, or that's what they're seeing on a daily basis.
Yeah,
on their phones, on their TVs. It is what it is.
We have some local orchestra directors here in the Springfield district that do a great job with this, Andy and Liz Johnston, and they basically repurpose pop music and they arrange it for their orchestra. And for the concerts, kids are performing these, and there'll be some mixture of classical tunes, but then there's, half of it probably, or maybe not half, I don't know, a fair number of it is popular music, and they'll get a kid who plays drums and sit and play drums, and they'll do those types of things. And these concerts aren't held at the school because the school's not big enough. They'll go to one of the big churches here and rent out that sanctuary, and it'll be packed with families listening to their kid play, Led Zeppelin and all kinds of other stuff. And I totally think you're right. Like, we need to see some adaptation to where we are today in order to have this activity continue to thrive. And also, hopefully, maybe it'll get kids to stick with it after school. Because when everything's just about playing with 100 of your friends and playing classical music and the band standards, that's not something you really continue on your own. And so a lot of kids play through high school and stop. And that's such a shame. It should be something they pursue for the rest of their life.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think it needs to be 100%, but and I think that first to second year, to get them in and get them hooked, kind of like you're a drug dealer when you were little, Donovan.
Yeah.
You gave you a free sample,
right?
And here you are 20 years later, 4 rehabs, and you're set.
Yeah, it was the Twinkie dealer, but yeah, same thing.
But
It was that hostess. The hostess rep got me hooked. Free Twinkie and a ding dong, and then here I am all these years later, addicted.
right.
Damn Ben and Jerry's.
You drove home the point, and I kind of said it with the highest attended Utah Symphony stuff, but it's obviously we know what people want to go listen to. We know what the parents want. We know what it takes to get a dad to take his kid to the symphony to make it work. And I just don't think that we're giving it to them at the moment.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about, Chick-fil-A and their method and madness of, they should be running the COVID test, and Chick-fil-A, look to them, look to this. Well, come on, what is Chick-fil-A doing for us? What they're doing for us is I want my food and I want it to be somewhat acceptable as far as fast food, and I want to get it quick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I like the spicy chicken sandwich at Wendy's. I'm just not going to sit in my car for another 15 minutes to wait for it.
Right.
Chick-fil-A is listening to those survey cards, and they're giving you what they want. They're not coming up with the special 7 herbs and spicers. They're not trying to compete with blah, blah, blah. They are listening to what the people want.
Yep.
And
the people want chicken sandwiches.
They want them fast so they can go about their day.
And they want waffle fries. I'm getting hungry. So let me ask you this last question then so I can go get some Chick-fil-A. So if you could send a message to yourself 10 years ago, what would you tell the younger you?
Delete my MySpace account so people that Google me in the future won't think less of me. I 10 years ago, even longer, my mom instilled into, try to learn at least one thing a day. And if I could go back, it would be, I need to up that to 2 or 3, because it's really not hard to learn one thing a day.
Mm-hmm.
Just probably educate myself more if I could go back. I mean, don't get me wrong, those, 5 hours on the snowboarding is mentally healthy. Watching my favorite movies, mentally healthy. But I would probably say just continue to educate myself more, not just business, but home as well.
Mm-hmm. And then what message do you want to tell yourself 10 years in the future?
10 years in the future. Continue, again, not to beat a dead horse, but just continue to learn from others, be respectful of others, and just be the best person I can be, and not get set in a rut. Meaning, I have this awesome young man in my life. He's 4 years old. His name's Liam. He loves Legos. Like, lives for Legos and watching Transformers. That's all he cares about. And I look up to him so much because he doesn't worry about mask. He doesn't worry about bringing home money. He just worries about Legos. And he has them in these giant piles. And one minute he's building a spaceship. The next minute he's building a boat. And when he's done, he brings it over and he's like, look what I built. And I'm like, that is so amazing. And so my 10-year self is, theoretically, don't quit. Don't forget about the joy of Legos. You walk into that front door, you've loved working here forever, continue to build, come up with the next hands-on thing, try to keep up with Tim Spicer, try to copy Nick Averwater, be as cool as Mark Goff, maybe don't be as anal as Joel Minchie on spreadsheets, but just continue to build those Legos. I just don't want to get caught up in the day-to-day mundane life. Like, I have these promotions, they work great. They're not broke, but it doesn't mean that I shouldn't keep thinking of starting a podcast for teachers or something else. That's what I want.
I love it. Well, Cris, I've got good news for you, my friend. You're hired.
Tim Spicer, you're out. You've been fired.
Tim's beard's too much better than mine too. That's I just can't. So can't be that selfless.